This page is the splashy front cover, screaming about all the goodies inside back in May '98. You've got the massive N64 Pro logo taking center stage, and a big chap from 1080 Degrees Snowboarding front and center, hyping it up as a world exclusive, with shouts of rocks, powder, speed! Looks like that snowboarding classic was the big focus this month. There's also a huge push for a free Zelda 64 giveaway. Yeah, they called it that back then before the proper name stuck, offering the chance to win one of 200 copies. On the smaller side, they're teasing brand new classified cheats for GoldenEye 007, always a popular draw. Plus, hints about Forsaken and PGA with Tiger Woods. Oh, and a massive £2,000 giveaway, apparently the biggest giveaway ever. Proper packed cover with all the hot stuff of the time. The next page is a bit of a mixed bag, isn't it? Over on the left, you've got an advert for the Blaze Jolt Pack 256, which was a pretty nifty idea back then, combining your Rumble Pack and memory card into one unit with a simple switch. Saved you swapping them out, which was a godsend if you were knee-deep in a game that used both. It claims compatibility with all Rumble Pack games, and has a built-in memory card, letting you switch between them mid-game. It's listed at a respectable £14.99, and they also show off their driving wheel and standard memory cards. Then, flipping over to the right, we have The Team, the magazine's crew, hilariously framed as young, virile ice hockey hopefuls. They've each got a little bio and a screenshot, presumably from an ice hockey game, showing their player stats. The bios are brilliant though, taking the mickey out of their own abilities. Like Alex, who's only ever seen a rink, but there was no ice. Or Jim, who sounds like a proper character getting arrested in a Jason costume. Mark apparently played once, but was too big for the arena. It's a fun, self-deprecating way to introduce the lads behind the magazine. At the very bottom you've got the small print with the N64 Pro masthead and contact details. A May 1998 N64 magazine issue 7, features a comprehensive contents page highlighting a cover story on 1080 snowboarding. Previews cover upcoming titles like Subterranean Piscine Cycling, Virtual Chess 64, and Buck Bumble. A significant Zelda 64 competition and a £2,000 competition are also advertised. The issue includes codes, tips and guides for GoldenEye 007, reviews for several games including 1080 Snowboarding, Jeopardy and Quake 64, and a section on news, feedback and a helpful as reviews section. Summer games and peripherals are also featured. The issue offers a variety of content for N64 gamers. This news roundup covers several upcoming N64 titles. Human Air Turbo, a hoverboard skateboarding sim, is slated for Japan and potentially the UK. Nintendo's Kobe Bryant's NBA Courtside is also mentioned, aiming for a solid sports experience. Import warnings are issued for 1080 snowboarding due to problematic copy protection. A full-color Game Boy, possibly with an N64 adapter, is in the works. Wrecking Balls, a unique puzzle racer, is previewed. Finally, a sequel to the somewhat disappointing Haryu no Ken, titled Flying Dragon, promises an improved fighting experience. This page kicks off with some news snippets, including a look at Design 3D, a game creation tool that lets you build your own shooters. Sounds ambitious. Then there's the Talking Shop section highlighting some cracking deals like a whole N64 bundle at Virgin for £149.99, and the price dropping on Turok, which is still a top game. But beware. They rightly warn that cheap games can be utter garbage, pointing a finger squarely at Cruisin' USA. We also hear about price cuts over in Japan for big hitters like Yoshi's Story and Diddy Kong Racing, complete with screenshots and character art, as Nintendo tries to shift more consoles. On the peripheral front there's a look at a wireless controller, neat idea, but apparently sacrifices Rumble Pack support, which is a bit of a rum-do. And finally, we get into the squared circle with news about the WCW wrestling license moving to E, featuring a snap of the Hulkster himself. Nintendo's feeling positive, calling this the dream season and a peak year for the N64. Gaming news highlights potential N64 releases like Rollerball and Contra 64, along with a possible Enix/Nintendo collaboration. GoldenEye remains top in the UK charts, with 1080 Snowboarding and Zelda 64/IS-98 as highly anticipated titles. Paradigm is developing Need for Speed, Hot Pursuit for N64. Leslie Phillips voices Gex, and Tiger Woods signs with EA Sports for their PGA Tour franchise. Acclaim Sports Soccer is facing delays, possibly due to the success of IS-98. A revised N64 release schedule is available, detailing UK, US, and Japanese releases, including 64DD titles. The schedule highlights key games like Forsaken, Rampage World Tour, Zelda 64, Buck Bumble, and Turok 2. The 1998 schedule features confirmed and estimated release dates for many games, including 1080 Snowboarding, Banjo-Kazooie, and Ocarina of Time. Future releases for 1998 and 1999 are listed but lack specific dates. Hardware information and accessories are also included. A feature spotlights Pikachu Genki Dachu, and Banjo-Kazooie is touted as a potential game-changer. This magazine issue boasts a massive giveaway, 200 copies of Zelda 64, free on release day in the UK. Readers can enter by answering a simple question about the game's protagonist. Reviews take center stage, featuring import/UK release indicators and a coveted stamp of approval for high-scoring games. 4 reviewers, with a combined 80 years of gaming experience, cover a diverse range of games, including sports, puzzles, shooters, and action-adventures like 1080 Snowboarding, Jeopardy, and Quake 64. The issue concludes with a panel, revealing the team's personal gaming preferences. This page dives straight into the hotly anticipated 1080 Snowboarding review, presented in the rather dramatic format of a courtroom trial. Judge GBP is presiding, and the game itself, Mr. Snowboarding, is on trial, accused of pretty much wiping the floor with every other game in the genre. Steve McNally is in the witness box, giving evidence about the game's performance. It looks like the review covers all the important bits: the superb physics that really nail every twist and turn, the different riders with their own styles, and the fantastic course design with multiple routes to explore. The screenshots show off the crisp visuals, particularly the rather lovely racing at sunset shot. There's also a handy guide to the N64 controller layout, showing how you pull off those tricks and control your board. And if you're looking for some tunes to shred to, there's even a sidebar with some N64 Pro approved music recommendations. Seems like Nintendo really pulled out all the stops on this one. This page continues the rather dramatic courtroom review of 1080 Snowboarding. Judge GBP is still trying to keep things in order, as defense Steve and prosecution Steve argue about the game's merits, bringing Mr. Snowboarding himself, SK that snowboard kid obviously, to the stand. SK admits the game is perhaps better looking, faster, and more enjoyable than previous efforts, which prosecution Steve uses to hammer home his point about the game's impact. The text delves into the gameplay, showing how different camera views work, and how the snow physics give realistic trails and make soft snow tricky to get through. There's a handy breakdown of the game modes under Exhibit B Modus Operandi, covering match race, time attack, trick attack, contest, 2-player split screen, and training, a pretty comprehensive list really. Screenshots highlight the different views, tricky sections like moguls, and specific areas like the halfpipe, and a massive jump for tricks. The reviewer seems impressed with the sound effects, especially how the board sounds on different surfaces. Overall, the consensus seems to be that this game is a serious contender, full of tricks to master, which apparently will take absolutely ages. The next page continues the courtroom drama for 1080 Snowboarding. Now the game itself, 1080, is on the stand and they're grilling it about the graphics. Apparently there are minor glitches but nothing to worry about, according to the defense. Then it's on to the control, which is deemed unmatched and perfectly capturing the feel of riding, even down to the different snow types. The conversation also covers the tracks and all the hidden shortcuts and gnarly obstacles you'll find. We see screenshots of a slalom race, hitting ramps, breaking records, and even dealing with blinding snow conditions, proving it's not for the faint-hearted. There's even a little Exhibit C box detailing a trick combo that sounds like it'll leave you with broken fingerprints. The review then hits the N64 score section, where Steve recounts how he actually scrapped his first review and started again, because the game is just that blooming good. He reckons it's easily the best snowboarder on the N64, if not on any console right now. Others like Mark, Noalie, and a reader called Mark Simonson chime in, all raving about how brilliant it is, from the sublime control to the excellent track design like the half-pipe and match race. The scores are broken down for graphics, gameplay, sound, and lastability, leading to a stellar overall score of 93%. A proper stamp of approval right there. This page moves from the slopes to the quiz floor, reviewing the N64 version of Jeopardy! The headline immediately sets the tone, asking, Q, what is a crappy-ass quiz show? Lovely. The reviewer adopts a persona, standing in for Alex Trebek, explaining how the game works. It follows the format of the TV show, giving you the answer first, and then you have to provide the correct question. There's mention of a helpful fill-in feature for spelling, which is apparently quite lenient. You get daily doubles where you can risk cash and the final Jeopardy round to win it all. However, the review is decidedly downbeat about the presentation. The game is described as dull, bland and lifeless. The graphics are called garish and awful, with characters that are static like concrete statues and blurred text on the boards. The sound design fares little better, mostly just the host chipping in occasionally. There are screenshots showing the main game board, the player selection screen, where you choose between human and computer opponents, and the reviewer makes some snarky comments about the computer player's appearance, and examples of questions and answers. There's also a diagram explaining the controls on the N64 pad, pointing out buttons to avoid. Despite the attempt to mimic the TV show, it sounds like the N64 version falls flat. A scathing review of Jeopardy! For the N64 awards the game a dismal 38%. The reviewer criticizes its us-centric questions, poor gameplay, and stingy daily doubles, calling it a crappy, bland, ridiculously us-orientated quiz show. Reader feedback echoes the negativity, with some users expressing a desire to destroy the cartridge. The page contrasts this poor showing with a large advertisement for Fighter's Destiny, which boasts high scores and praise from other publications, positioning it as a superior fighting game. Puyo Puyo Sun 64, a classic Japanese puzzler on the N64, is reviewed as a Tetris with blobs. Graphics are basic, SNES-like, but acceptable. Multiplayer is well received, but the single-player AI is criticized for its abrupt difficulty increase. The core gameplay, matching blobs to create combos, is satisfying. The game is recommended for its multiplayer and addictive puzzle mechanics, earning a 70% score, but the single-player is a potential drawback. It's similar to Tetris, Columns, and Super Puzzle Fighter, Cordy. This page dives into Snowboard Kids, a title that apparently started strong on the N64 slopes, but has lost a bit of its momentum over time, according to the reviewer. It seems they were initially impressed, like kids in snow, but after a few weeks wisdom, or perhaps just boredom, set in, and it's now deemed regrettably slower. The game features distinct, stylized Japanese characters rather than realistic borders, which the reviewer finds terrific, comparing them to Super Deformed Gundam. There are character profiles like Jam Quinumond, Linda Moulton, and Tommy Parsi, each with ratings for speed, cornering, and trick ability, giving you a sense of who's best at what. The page showcases screenshots of the action, including a start line scramble, aerial stunts, and even rail slides. They highlight some power-ups you can use to gain an edge or hinder opponents, like the push-shove, a parachute to drop foes from the sky, freeze to turn them to ice, a snowman transformation, and a bomb. The courses sound varied, with mentions of Guru Guru Mountain, and even racing on Grass Valley, which certainly breaks the mold. It seems to be a racing game with a twist, incorporating stunts and power-ups to keep things interesting, though the ultimate verdict is a touch lukewarm after the initial excitement wore off. Snowboard Kids, reviewed on the next page, features characters like Slash Kamei and Nancy Neal, along with a shopkeeper dog. The game offers various modes including races, time trials, a unique snowman shooting game, and a trick mode. Tracks involve downhill racing, shop stops for upgrades, and chairlift ascents. Blue power-ups are described as useful, but not overly aggressive. A significant drawback is the PAL version's noticeably slower speed compared to other versions. Despite this, the game's graphics and gameplay are praised, alongside its multiplayer fun. The review gives it an 84% score, but notes the tracks might be too easy, and the speed difference could limit replayability. Reader reviews generally agree it's fun, especially in multiplayer, but some find it simplistic. This page is all about NHL Breakaway 98, and honestly it sounds like a cracking bit of fun on the ice. The review kicks off with a slightly dated but amusing reference to Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan before declaring hockey the coolest sport, which, fair enough. The graphics are praised for their motion capture and detailed animations, even if things look a bit small from the zoomed-out view. There are loads of camera angles to choose from, including a rather ambitious on-ice cam that sounds a bit disorienting, but cool for replays. Gameplay-wise, it seems to hinge on simple controls, A to pass, B to shoot, and a momentum-based checking system that factors in everything from weight to timing for those crunching hits. The physics are apparently spot on. The reviewer admits to being hooked after initial skepticism, though notes the goalies might be a bit rubbish at first. They even feature a Zen64 Pro team, with stats for custom players like Lex, Jim, and Noelle, and a 5-step visual guide showing you how to dake the goalie. There are screenshots highlighting dramatic moments like penalty shootouts, big hits, and even a referee giving someone the boot. It sounds like a solid simulation, with a focus on realism. This NHL Breakaway 98 review highlights the game's action-packed gameplay, showcasing player customization through the Total Team Management system. Players can build and train their teams, assigning skills and attributes, even personalizing jerseys. The fast-paced gameplay emphasizes fatigue management with crucial line changes. Detailed sound effects are promised, from skates to bone-on-ice impacts. An arcade mode simplifies the game by removing icing and offsides for those seeking a quicker experience. Reviewers praise the realism and speed, awarding a 91/100th score, calling it a potential console-best hockey title. A controller layout diagram completes the review. The next page dives into the N64 port of the legendary PC shooter, Quake 64. The big question posed is whether it's a blast or if we've been gibbed. The reviewer is clearly excited to see this classic finally arrive on the console, even if the descriptive terms used for the N64 controls sound a bit fruity. It touches upon the game's reputation and how many expected it to be simple like Doom, only to find it a much more involved experience requiring constant movement and aiming, particularly that crucial ability to look up and down. The difficulty is mentioned, with a nod to other reviewers struggling to get to grips with it initially. The page highlights the weapons, describing them as a Magnitude 7 event, with special mention for the powerful rocket launcher and the strategic grenade launcher. There are various screenshots showing the gameplay, from secret areas and weapon effects to encounters with beasties like zombies, fiends and ogres. Crucially, the review stresses that while the single player is good, Quake truly shines in its deathmatch mode, even if it's only for 2 players on the N64. Shots depict the frantic player versus player action that the series is famous for. Overall, it seems like a well-received port of the PC classic. This page continues the deep dive into Quake 64, really getting into the nitty-gritty of what playing this beast on the N64 is actually like. The reviewer talks about the weapons feeling suitably powerful, essential for dishing out the damage. They cover the game's structure, noting the dark, foreboding levels and how you need to tackle all the foul creatures lurking about to progress, highlighting the challenge even on normal difficulty. The atmosphere gets a big shout-out, described as extremely impressive, with dark levels made all the more intense by the eerie background sounds added specifically for this version. Apparently, the graphics hold up well, even surpassing the PC's GL Quake in some ways, particularly the lighting, and a much improved color palette that moves away from the PC's brown obsession. There's a cracking bestiary section showing off some of the delightful chaps you'll be blasting, from the mighty Kethon and the fearsome fiend to your standard grunts, and the ever-charming zombies who kindly donate limbs. It even includes a diagram of the N64 controller setup, proudly showing off the mouse-look control option via the analog stick, a proper concession for PC veterans that, overall, it paints a picture of a surprisingly robust and atmospheric port. Quake 64, while a visually impressive N64 port, receives a mixed review. The limited 2-player split-screen multiplayer and lack of co-op are significant drawbacks compared to the PC original and N64's GoldenEye. While the multiplayer levels are praised for their complexity, the single-player mode is considered weak. Other reviewers generally agree that, despite good graphics and gameplay, GoldenEye remains the superior N64 shooter. The final score of 88% reflects solid marks in other categories, but ultimately the game's limitations hold it back. This page covers the review for Olympic Hockey Nagano 98, the latest installment in the Wayne Gretzky series. The reviewer, with a touch of weary familiarity, notes this is the 3rd version and wonders if Midway is just milking the franchise, but concedes it's still a good game at its core. It seems the game embraces the more chaotic and violent side of ice hockey, cheekily referring to players as deranged psychopathic killers. You've got 2 modes to bash your way through: a quick and dirty arcade mode on a smaller rink, and a simulation mode that aims for more realism. Screenshots litter the page, showing off the frantic action, including goal celebrations, face-offs, and even the occasional player brawl. There's a diagram helpfully pointing out the N64 controller buttons for checks, trips, turbo, and shooting, suggesting plenty of ways to interact with the opposition, violently or otherwise. The review mentions that fouling is practically part of the strategy, especially in the arcade mode. It sounds like a solid, if slightly overfamiliar, entry focusing on fast, aggressive gameplay, rather than deep simulation. This page continues our review of Olympic hockey Nagano 98, and as the main reviewer Mark notes, there's a distinct sense of déjà vu if you've played Wayne Gretzky's previous efforts. Still, they reckon it's fast-paced and action-packed, though maybe not quite as polished as NHL Breakaway. You get a look at the various national teams involved in the Strip Tease section, showing off the colors of countries like Canada, Russia, USA, and many more in action shots. Gameplay seems to offer a good mix, with a quick arcade mode perfect for messing about with mates, and a deeper simulation mode. The controls are praised for being well thought out, giving you plenty of options for checks and shots. There's even a section called Rinky Dinky Doo, highlighting the ability to customize things like penalties and player switching, and yes, you can even switch the fights off if you're not into that sort of thing, though they admit it's more fun if you leave them on for a good rumble. Screenshots throughout the page show the honest chows, including a rather enthusiastic fight between Canada and Russia. The overall N64 score breaks down the graphics, gameplay, sound, and lastability, leading to a final percentage. Staff and reader comments weigh in, largely agreeing it's a good, solid hockey game, even if some prefer Acclaim's rival effort. A review of Mystical Ninja, Goemon, on the N64, describes the game as utterly bonkers and surreal. The reviewer, struggling to avoid words like bizarre, highlights the game's outlandish characters, like Goemon with a pipe, and fantastical elements, dragons, mysterious boxes. Screenshots showcase the game's unique visuals and gameplay, including a complex control scheme. The review notes the game's challenging narrative, drawing comparisons to Super Mario 64 in terms of controls, while acknowledging its distinct Japanese aesthetic. The reviewer ultimately embraces the game's wild, incomprehensible nature, praising its quirky charm. This page, the review of Mystical Ninja, continues, diving deeper into the gameplay. They mention it's structured a bit like a proper Zelda game, with dungeons and puzzles, and you can actually switch between the party members Goemon, Ebisu, Sasuke and Yae, each with their own skills, which is a great touch. The game is apparently rammed with varied minigames and bizarre events, really leaning into its very Japanese nature, which the reviewer sees as a huge plus for pure inventiveness. You even get the lyrics to a tune in the Sing-Alonga Goemon section, which is just brilliant. The page also shows off the full cast of characters you'll be adventuring with. It all culminates in a cracking 86% score, with strong marks across the board, especially for gameplay and how long it'll keep you hooked. It seems the game divided opinion a bit among readers, but frankly, something this unique is bound to do that. This page is a deep dive into Robotron 64, the N64's take on the classic arcade twin-stick shooter. The reviewer, clearly a fan of the original from their youth, describes it as more callous and trickier than other games of the era. The core premise is still saving the last human family from a robotic uprising, controlled using the N64 pad's analog stick for movement and the C buttons for firing in 8 directions. A clever way to mimic the dual-stick setup. The game throws waves of various robotic foes and brains at you, challenging you to survive and save the humans. While the new 3D look gets a mention, it doesn't seem to drastically alter the core, frantic gameplay loop. The review highlights how Robotron 64 improves on the original by adding power-ups like extra lives and different weapons, including a handy 3-way gun, making the intense action a bit more manageable. There are also bonus stages every 20 waves to boost your score. There's a quirky section comparing the game's visuals to Andy Warhol's pop art, Robo-Warhol naturally, and a trip down memory lane recalling Robotron 2084, and the cultural context of 1982 and 1998. At a hefty £59.99, it sounds like it was quite the investment back then, but the review seems to imply it's worth it for the pure arcade blasting fun. This review delves into the Robotron 64 arcade conversion. The game features various enemy types like grunts, hulks, and tanks, all aiming to eliminate the last humans. While the graphics, despite 3D effects, are deemed repetitive, the throbbing acid house soundtrack is praised. The reviewer finds the gameplay linear and repetitive, but enjoyable nonetheless. Reader responses are mixed, with some praising its faithfulness to the original, while others criticize it as low quality. The overall score is 74%. The page also includes numerous advertisements for game imports, console conversions, and online gaming services like Zetnet. GoldenEye 007 for the N64 continues to be popular, prompting a follow-up walkthrough article. Readers share secrets, including a method for mining TVS in the Seven-Eye Bunker multiplayer map, and tips for finding weapons and shortcuts in other levels. A standout tip from John Davies details how to set up local multiplayer on multiple TVS using only one N64, and an amplifier, potentially eliminating the need for expensive link cables. The article also features reader-submitted tips and a humorous anecdote about Sean Bean considering a name change. This page dives headfirst into the glorious world of cheating. Sponsored by Interact, naturally, this spread is titled, "You Cheating Bastard Percent." No messing about there. Still riding the GoldenEye 007 wave, they're putting the call out to readers again, promising peripherals or a crisp £20 for killer cheats or a cracking game guide. Seems like Mark is waiting to be dazzled. Beyond Bond, there's plenty more to get stuck into. NHL Breakaway offers ways to tweak the game, like pulling the goalie. Robotron 64 gets a look in with codes for shields, flamethrowers, and even a bonkers autoplay option. Because who needs to actually play the game? Diddy Kong Racing coughs up a massive list of 21 codes, doing everything from making characters tiny or huge, to messing with balloons and unlocking modes. Top Gear Rally has a rather intriguing code for something called an LSD track minus sounds. Trippy, plus ways to unlock cars. And Duke Nukem 3D? Central cheats here, for invincibility and getting all the weapons. Because sometimes you just want to kick butt without the hassle. It's a solid collection of reader-submitted secrets for tweaking your favorite N64 games. Just remember to hide the magazine from your mates if you use these. This page gives us a good look at Forsaken, an N64 game previewed here as Subterranean Science Cycling, written by Alex Lee. It's marked as exclusive, and the first fully playable version, always nice to see. The spread features a cracking illustration of a character in a yellow suit, looking ready for action, alongside several screenshots showcasing the game's tunnels and combat. There's also another illustration of a character in green armor on some kind of futuristic bike, which frankly looks a bit mad but cool. The article focuses on how the game has progressed since a previous look, noting improvements like the optimization for 4-player split screen, making the action clearer. It draws comparisons to Descent, that classic PC free-roaming shooter, but points out that Forsaken is bigger, more detailed, and has its own unique take on gravity and level design. The preview touches on the game's setting too, a slightly bleak view of a destroyed Earth's surface, forcing the action underground. Looks like owners of British N64s were adding this to their must-have list back then. The next page carries on with the preview of Forsaken, diving deeper with a queue and a session. They talk about releasing it on N64, PlayStation, and PC simultaneously, with the N64 version supposedly having a bit more story and different levels compared to the PS% versions, which are more straight-up mercenary action. It sounds like the enemy AI is pretty sharp, described as quite intelligent, learning to evade fire, and even forming up with leaders. They confirm the enemies aren't human-controlled, just clever programming. Weapons are discussed, with the homing missile getting a shout-out. Apparently it bounces off walls like Guile's sonic booms, which is a nice touch. They explain why they went with Paralisin cycles, futuristic bikes, instead of jetpacks, saying they just worked better. Good to know it supports the Rumble Pack, though no password save system is a bit of a pain, but they mention it's out around the end of May after about a year in development. Acclaim apparently expected it to outsell both Turok and Extreme G, which is a bold claim considering how well those did. The preview mentions the pre-submission version was already looking polished and fast, just needing minor tweaks. All in all, it sounds like they had high hopes for this one. This page kicks off a massive feature titled, "Phew, what a scorcher!" setting the scene with a couple of sunbathers, perfect for a summer guide. It talks about that dreaded annual video game drought we usually suffer through in the summer, but fear not, because Uncle Nintendo apparently has a cunning plan. It seems after a slightly quiet 1997, the N64 is finally ready to launch into a turbocharged, power-packed cavalcade of quality cuts to keep us busy indoors during the heatwave. Steve McNally is here to guide us through it, promising a bumpy ride with some help from Akira Yamawaki, Noelle and Bub Taylor. It looks like they're setting us up for N64 Pro's essential guide to all the big games hitting the console this summer. This page dives right into the absolute heavy hitters. First up is The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. Now this wasn't just a game, oh no. The magazine reckons its arrival will be a momentous occasion, like something you'll remember exactly where you were when you first played it. Yeah, they went a bit dramatic with the comparisons there. Miyamoto's calling it his magnum opus, promising to revolutionize the RPG genre. It's looking stunning with breathtaking techniques, and everyone's just buzzing. Frankly, the mag thinks it's going to be huge. Bigger than Noelle's hair, in fact. The reviewers are all hyped up, having seen bits of it, and they're giving it a massive 5 out of 5 potential. But wait, there's more. Next is Banjo-Kazooie, from those brilliant British chaps at Rare. The headline says, "If you thought Mario 64 was good, just wait for this." Rare's known for taking a Nintendo formula and giving it their own unique spin, and this looks like another cracking example. They're calling it a smash hit and jaw-droppingly good. The screenshots look vibrant and fun, classic Rare platforming goodness featuring Banjo the Bear and Kazooie the Bird. The reviewers are equally excited about this one, acknowledging Rare's incredible track record. It also gets a perfect 5 out of 5 potential rating. This page features some more absolute belters coming to the N64. First up is MLB featuring Ken Griffey Jr. from Nintendo themselves. Forget just churning out generic sports titles, this is Nintendo's go at baseball, and they're packing in new batting and pitching methods. It looks absolutely cracking, exactly what you'd expect from a quality baseball sim. The lads reckon it's got high potential, and Nintendo should make sure it's a winner. Then we've got F-Zero X, the sequel to the SNES classic. This looks set to be one of the fastest races you've ever played, and it's looking like a definite winner. Apparently, getting your hands on it might mean an import job initially. The reviewers are buzzing, calling it state of heart and believing it will push boundaries, just like Miyamoto always does. Looks superb on the N64. Finally, there's International Superstar Soccer 98 from Konami. The football game. There's plenty of chat about anticipation and the difficulty of getting eyes on the game over in Japan, but the hopes are high. Konami's track record is strong, and while one reviewer isn't as keen on football compared to baseball, the others see it as a potential holy grail of soccer games. All three titles are showing serious potential. This preview highlights upcoming N64 games, starting with All-Star Baseball, praised for its stunning visuals. Nintendo's 64DD add-on, a writable disc system, is also discussed, with hopes for expanding existing games like F-Zero and Zelda, though concerns remain about its potential failure. A variety of other titles are mentioned, including Bio-Tetris, Bomberman, Conker, Dracula 3D, Mortal Kombat 4, Iggy's Wrecking Balls, Quest 64, and Space Station, Silicon Valley. The overall impression is of a diverse and exciting summer lineup for the N64. This page is previewing Titus's attempt to bring the ancient game of chess into the modern age on the N64, with Virtual Chess 64. The reviewer seems quite keen on the idea, suggesting it's high time for a proper brain workout after all the endless blasting. It looks like it's leveraging a proven AI engine from the PC version, which is a good start. Features mentioned include a tutorial guided by Titus the Fox, multiple difficulty levels for everyone from beginners to, well, me apparently. Visually, they're promising a sharp 640 by 480 resolution, and some nice touches like different 2D piece sets, including amusing animal ones, and a cool-looking Viking set in 3D, complete with battle animations when pieces are captured. There's talk of a save feature and even a mini-tournament mode, which sounds promising. There's also a little history lesson on chess, and a slightly snarky note about the Japanese version possibly getting a modem feature while the UK/US versions likely won't. Typical really. Overall, it seems like a solid, well-featured chess game aiming to make the most of the N64's visuals. The next page gives us a look at something rather unexpected from Ubisoft. Buck Bumble. What? A 3D shoot-'em-up starring a bee? Apparently so. The game sees you playing as Buck, a decidedly miffed bumblebee, taking on the vicious evil herd, alien mutant insects with depraved designs on the native bug world. Buck's mission is simple: sting 'em all and save the day. It's described as a 3D action shoot-'em-up, spread over 27 increasingly challenging missions, with some even hidden away. You'll have primary goals to complete, plus secondary objectives that can help you out. They're planning multiplayer for up to 4 players too, which sounds brilliantly chow-abilitic. The reviewer notes, the first-person view feels suitably frantic, comparing the pace to the Japanese version of Star Fox, which makes sense given the team behind it also did the SNES classic. Tekko. You'll get to pick up weapon bits from defeated enemies, and the missions promise to keep things fresh with new challenges and surprises. With a distinct soundtrack and odd audio effects, Paris-based Ubisoft seems to think this one will truly be the bee's knees. It's estimated to be about 50% complete, aiming for a September release. Definitely looks like one to keep an eye on for some flying, stinging, and shooting fun. This page gives us a preview of Acclaim's upcoming All-Star Baseball game for the N64. Frankly, it's a relief after some of the questionable baseball imports we've seen over here. Developed by the same team that knocked it out of the park with NFL QB Club 98, they're aiming for baseball supremacy. The reviewer seems genuinely impressed, noting the game is already looking visually stunning, even in these early stages. It boasts a hires mode and incredibly smooth motion-captured animation, which apparently makes everything feel incredibly realistic, though they admit the frame rate isn't quite perfect yet. But hey, it's still in development, right? It's going head-to-head with other baseball titles from Nintendo and GT Interactive, but Acclaim seems confident. They've packed it to the brim with features, including all the licensed MLB teams, hundreds of players and official stadiums. The bumper list of facts panel rattles off everything from detailed stats and roster management, to multiple game modes, commentary, and even player injuries. Looks like they're pulling out all the stops to please the baseball faithful. It's currently pegged at about 75% complete for an April release. A 1998 World Cup N64 football game preview examines 4 contenders: Ocean/Infogrames UEFA Soccer, likely to be late; Konami's International Superstar Soccer, favored; Acclaim Sports Soccer, questionable release date; and E's World Cup 98, licensed and strong. Konami's ISS64, with its strong reputation, and E's FIFA licensing and marketing prowess are predicted to dominate the market, although the reviewer leans towards Konami's game. This N64 add-on review covers memory expansion, Jolt Pack 256, top-rated peripherals, Nintendo controller, Action Replay, and various controllers, Trident Pro Pad, Trident Pad. The Jolt Pack 256 gets a middling score. The Trident Pro Pad, with autofire and slow motion, receives an average rating, while the standard Trident Pad scores similarly. The biggest news is Datel's Game Boy emulator for N64, allowing color Game Boy gameplay and cheats, promising a full review later. The next page dives straight into the action with the Goal of the Month feature, this time celebrating the glorious ice hockey simulation, NHL Breakaway 98. Clearly an office favorite, they're showcasing 6 of the absolute best goals pulled off in the game, sent in by players who clearly know how to tickle the twine. Each goal is broken down with screenshots and descriptions, like adding the final coat or Massive's miracle. Proper heroes of the digital rink, eh? They also throw in some tricks of the trade on the side, giving you little pointers on how to master the game, like bamboozling the last defender or snatching the puck. Plus, they announced the February Goal of the Month winner, a chap named Chris Doyle who apparently pulled off a Mark Hughes-style volley, whatever that looks like in a hockey game. And naturally, they're asking you to get involved, vote for your favorite of these 6 cracking goals, for a chance to win a game. All good fun for the digital puck chasers out there. This page dives straight into a cracking offer. 2 magazines for the price of 1. You're getting issue 19 of PlayStation Pro, which looks like it's got a massive exclusive UK review of Resident Evil 2 promising 100 new gore shots. Brilliant. The cover also teases features on Ninja, Motorhead, Gran Turismo, and Masters of the Terras Cassie. As part of the deal, you also get the first issue of PlayStation Zone, packed with cheats, tips and solutions for games like Bloody Roar and FIFA 98. All this back in April 1998, for just £2.95. Hunchi. Over on the right, they're offering you the chance to grab some back issues of N64 Pro for a mere £3 each. Bit of a bummer that the Christmas and January issues, 2 and 3, are already sold out. Those had some great stuff in them like GoldenEye 007 and Diddy Kong Racing, but you can still pick up issue 1, 4, 5 and 6, featuring classics like Extreme G, Yoshi's Story, and Nagano Winter Olympics, often with a free guide or cheats booklet included. There's a handy little form there if you fancy adding to your collection. This page is all about getting you hooked on 64 Pro with a cracking subscription offer. They're practically giving away goodies if you sign up. You can bag yourself an official Nintendo joypad, and they show off the different colors like blue, yellow, green and red. Proper choice there. Or, if you prefer, an official Nintendo Rumble Pack and Controller Pack. Both a decent kit, let's be honest, adding a whole new dimension to your N64 experience. All you have to do is subscribe to 13 issues of N64 Pro, and you'll get the magazine delivered free to your door, which is always a bonus. They even highlight that it's subject to availability for the colored joypads, so you'd best get in quick if you've got a favorite. There are different subscription rates depending on where you are and how you want to pay, including a handy direct debit option that saves you a few quid. You can fill out the form, call their subs hotline if you're paying by card, or even fax or email them. They've made it pretty easy to get your hands on the mag and some free gear. They also show off a couple more back issue covers, just to tempt you further with classic games like Extreme J and Yoshi's Story. The next page is absolutely packed with freebies in their biggest giveaway ever too. Seems they've really gone all out to beat last month's competition, which is fair play to them. There's a great mix of stuff on offer here. You've got Landlock anime videos and David Duchovny flicks for the older crowd. Watch the age limits though, they're strict on that. Plus, there are some cracking graphic novels featuring aliens and Superman, NHL breakaway carts if you fancy hitting the ice virtually, and even some ice hockey shirts worn by the pros. For the horror fans, there are Wes Craven t-shirts with none other than Freddy Krueger mugging away. And they've thrown in some audio web singles for good measure. To enter, you just answer a few questions related to the prizes, like movie facts, game details, or superhero trivia. Fill out the form nice and clearly, and send it off by April 30th. They even let you photocopy the form, which saves a trip to the newsagent if you mess up. On the side there's also a mention of a massive Zelda 64 giveaway, happening on page 14 to 200 copies. Definitely worth checking that out. Looks like they've been dishing out prizes recently too, with a load of winners listed from previous comps. Proper generous bunch, these N64 Pro lot. The next page is the feedback section, where the readers get to have their say. Fair play to anyone who gets published here. They even dangle the carrot of a goodie bag stuffed with 100 quid's worth of spook peripherals for the letter of the month winner. Which this time around is James Thomas for his rather unique idea of a Sub-Uteo fishing game using the Ultra Racer peripheral. Mad but creative. We've got lads weighing in on everything, from magazine lists being faultless, to debating whether Diddy Kong Racing or Mario Kart 64 is the real king, and someone even questioning the reviews of games like Yoshi's Story and Goman 5. There's also a bit of back and forth about Extreme G and its longevity, plus the usual hunt for cheat codes, naturally. Looks like the mag is keeping its promise on the giveaways too, following up on all the freebies they've been dishing out recently. There's a little shout out to 6 of the best, highlighting Konami Action Replay, and even a quick mention of their ultimate charts. All in all, a solid letters page with plenty of gamer opinions flying about. Readers are discussing Nintendo's direction, the future of Pocket Monsters and the 64DD, and suggest focusing on core genres like RPGs and beat-em-ups. A strong positive reaction to the Madden Football 64 review, with interest in future football titles like FIFA. Grand Theft Auto is confirmed not to be coming to the N64. Other topics include Cruisin' USA, controller weight, fighting game development, and the need for a new issue. Readers praise the Talking Shop feature and GoldenEye, with a strategy for the Aztec level shared. Screenshots of Pikachu and a Clay Fighter/Dark Rift character are included. This page is presenting an ultimate guide to N64 gaming, aiming to help us sort the wheat from the chaff as it were. There are a couple of chart listings showing the top-rated games according to the magazine itself, and also an average score across several other mags, which is handy for seeing what the consensus is. GoldenEye and Diddy Kong Racing are rightly riding high on those lists, which aligns perfectly with what everyone was buzzing about back then. Below the charts, they've rattled through a bunch of games with screenshots and quick takes. You've got races like the blistering Extreme G, and the less than impressive Cruisin' USA that apparently feels like getting the clap. We see some fighting games like the truly dire Clay Fighter and Dual Heroes, which they seem to think are a bit of a joke. There's also the solid first golf game, Augusta Masters, and a look at shooters like Doom 64, and the much improved Duke Nukem 64. The reviews are pretty blunt, pulling no punches on the stinkers but giving credit where it's due, like for Rare's wonderfully destructive Blast Core. Plus, there's a massive picture of Diddy Kong, looking ready to race, front and center. It's a good overview of the N64 landscape at the time, showing the hits, the misses, and the downright weird. This page continues the look at the N64 library, kicking off with a rather striking image of a speed skater, hinting at the Winter Olympics game review later on. It's essentially a quick-fire run-through of more titles, giving you the lowdown on what's worth your time and what's not. We've got some new entries making their debut, like Famista 64, a Japanese baseball game that seems to get a decent nod for its charm despite the realism taking a back seat. Then there's FIFA 98, a vast improvement they say, finally giving us the footy game N64 deserved. Fire Electric Pen is another oddball import entry, a tricky puzzle game that sounds like a bit of a nightmare with commentary barking at you. Elsewhere, we see familiar faces like GoldenEye 007, still getting high praise, and ISS 64, scoring big for its realistic footy action. Fighter's Destiny sounds like a solid fighting game that rises above the crowd, while Killer Instinct Gold apparently doesn't quite hit the mark. Mario Kart 64 gets a mention as a flawed genius that's been surpassed, and Lilac Wars, Star Fox 64 to us, is hailed as an absolutely stunning shoot-'em-up. The reviews are pretty straight to the point, calling out the duds like Mortal Kombat Mythologies for being absolutely horrible. It's a handy quick guide to more N64 games. This N64 profile review covers various games, NBA Pro 98 disappoints with poor graphics and gameplay, while NFL Quarterback Club 98 fares better, capturing football well. Pilot Wing 64 is praised as a highlight. Shadows of the Empire mixes Star Wars elements with uninspired Doom-like sections. Super Mario 64 is lauded as a masterpiece. Turok, War Gods, and Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey are action-oriented titles, while Wave Race 64 excels. Racing games San Francisco Rush and Top Gear Rally also receive positive feedback. New entries include Uzumo, Virtual Hiryu no Ken, and Tohkon Road. Snowboard Kids and Tetrasphere complete the lineup. The author notes the AS list is growing, promising 1080 snowboarding next month. This page looks ahead to the next issue. We've got a preview of the huge Banjo-Kazooie, which they reckon might even top Mario 64. Now that's a bold claim. Wetrix is getting a look in with Noely showing us the ropes, and Steve's got his finger on the pulse for Quake 64 news. Seems like the footy focus continues with ISS 98, World Cup 98, and UEFA Soccer, plus a bit of American baseball with MLB All-Star Baseball. Mark and Alex are apparently overseeing things. There's also a massive advert for Special Reserve, flogging loads of N64 and PlayStation games, with some hefty discounts and freebies on offer, plus details for their stores. And it seems Alex is blaming Noely for writing this page. The next issue, number 8, is on sale April 30th,